Hey everybody, so as I mentioned in the last video, when I talked about the throat, I said that this seems to be the one that if you're doing a retreat, going through the 7 centers, where everything hits the fan. Interestingly enough, it's like from the chakras below, it's like that's where we connect with our emotions more so. How we feel, how we move through life. But once we get up into the throat, we start to hit up into the mental body, our thoughts, our mind. And as my teacher says, everything is mind. So when we really start to go up and access just how we think, how we engage with the world, what we create with our mind, things starts to go a little crazy when we start to bash into some of those ways that we're moving through the world that aren't really working, you know, for example, I was doing a retreat where we had someone come in, and because this is about expression, we were doing a lot of singing. And I could feel this like tension inside me building up. And the reason being is because I had to have a conversation with somebody and I had been avoiding it forever. I didn't want to have it. I was too afraid of the repercussions. And as the energy started to move and we concentrated here, my throat started to get more painful, more painful, more painful, till I was losing my voice. And I thought, oh no, I'll just, sing my way through it or imagine my way through it. But it wasn't about that. It was about having to actually do a physical action to make physical change in the world. So when people have issues with their throat, I'm like, you have to go through and really examine what needs to be said. You have to be courageous. So sure enough, when I made the call and had the conversation, poof, everything stopped. I was fine. So I have a lot of respect for like what needs to be done in the real world, not just in our world of imaginations. And I talk about that a lot. So with the throat, we're talking about this area here and the governance of our voice box, our larynx. Being able to speak, our air tube, being able to breathe in air, our thyroid, the gland here that really connects to our ability to metabolize things in a good way. There's a connection here with the sex chakra, so if this is malfunctioning, generally there's something going on down here as well, and I always look for a connection there. And of course, because energy comes up and splits here on both sides, you can tend to find issues in the jaw, in the temple chakras, in the ears as well, because the throat really rises up and feeds this whole area of the body. Our eyes as well, everything from the head up, I would check here. So if there's an issue here, we're going to experience some throat-related ailments, not being able to speak, having issues with goiter, where you get that big lump in the throat. Funnily enough, also too, they tend to find people that experience any kind of sterility, having problems conceiving, actually have issues going on here as well. So this area needs to be addressed. Again, with the thyroid, and again, this is from my personal experience over many, many years, what I tend to find when I go into the thyroid here, and I would say there's a story actually about Shiva, and he was the one in his throat turned blue because he was able to process poisons. And in our myths, there's always a truth to be found. And what I find here when I go into the thyroid and it's really malfunctioning, a lot of times I'll start to taste a metallic taste in my mouth, like I'm drinking out of really dirty copper pipes or this sort of thing. And I find that this area tends to process heavy metals in the body. And if it gets into a state of overload, I tend to see issues here. Again, this is just my own experience. But generally, it's good to explore as a time for a metallic detox or this sort of thing, or changing my drinking water source or something along these lines. So as I mentioned before, below here, we're talking emotions. Everything from the heart really down below, especially in the torso area. But when we move up into the throat and we start getting into the realm of mind, the way that things are going to express change a little bit here. So in the throat, now we're getting into how do you communicate? And not just communicate with another person, but communicate with all things. How do you communicate with your voice? How do you communicate non-verbally? How do you communicate with yourself? How's your self-talk? If you really think about the center, it's the source of higher creativity. So whatever worlds we decide to weave with our minds, that's what we create. And if we create a world of fear, if we create a world of, I'm going to die, I'm sick, I don't have enough money, I'm whatever, and especially if we speak it, This is what we weave into the world. We are creators of the world, and we realize how powerful we are. For an example, this is just coming to me now, but I was in a medicine ceremony years ago, and this person had done many plant diets and had a lot of power. They'd been training since they were very young, and were going through a time when they believed that there was bad energy all around, that they were being attacked by outside forces. And their belief in this was so strong that when they would come, the ceremony, it would be like all of a sudden the person would have this thought, and then we would all experience being covered in spiders. And I'd look around the room, and all of a sudden everybody started seeing differently, because this is what we were experiencing. When that person would leave the ceremony and they didn't come, this would never happen. And it really taught me, like, wow, we can create anything, and not just for ourselves, but for the people around us, especially if we do practices or have things to create power here. We have to be very responsible with what we say. This is really important. So what else here? Our ability to express truth. And not just where you go around and you say everything you're thinking to people. You know, that's more of an excessive throat here, but where you actually feel like I have something that is causing a block between my ability to relate to you, my ability for you to see me, my ability to love you, to know you. And to have the courage to be able to say, hey, this has happened, or hey, I've done this, or hey, this behavior is making me feel this. You know, this is about being able to say this. And the thing is like when you keep this clear and you don't tell lies and you don't hold on to stuff, this area again becomes so powerful. They say in yoga that anything you speak manifests, and it's true because you're really careful about what you speak. Other things that happen here, when we have plans for things, our ability to concretize our ideas. And what I mean by that is being able to have an idea up here. I've taken this out of the ether, this is a great idea. But what are the details? How are you actually going to make it happen? And this is the area of the throat. What do I need to do to delegate to be able to actually make this happen? So there's people that are the grand thinkers but lack the details. And I would say, if you're a person like this, it's always good if you're creating a business or this sort of thing to make sure that you incorporate all the different aspects of people into your team, like the details person that can make things happen. Musical timing is here. So if this is really functioning well, you're one of those people that just can carry rhythm anytime, which is amazing. And finally, projecting the creativity of the sacral. So this sexual or sacral energy, creative energy that wants to come out, it's like, how do you voice it and give it to the world? Last thing I would say is also our ability to feel spacious. The ether element is connected here, and whenever this is malfunctioning, I always feel that you can feel either too spacey or that there's not enough happening there. So just bringing this area into balance, and I do talk about that in other videos. There's a mudra that I give for spaciousness specifically, which affects this area here. So if this center is depleted, there's not a lot of energy flowing. First and foremost, you want to make sure that go back and look at the sacral chakra. Is the sacral chakra functioning well? And if you don't know either way, please visit my videos on chakra 1 and 2 on how to scan if it's depleted, not enough, or congested too much. Check that first. So once we feel we've been able to open that up a little bit, you should see an expansion here. But also, I would say, getting yourself able to use this. So as I mentioned earlier, when you need to have a conversation with somebody, if there's a block there, scan through your life and see if there's a conversation that needs to be had with somebody. And it can be from the past, it can be from people that have passed on. You know, you can have someone else sit in front of you and let them be that person and express what needs to be said, have them hold space for you. You can write a letter to the person, you can do a ceremony where you say something to somebody and then release it into a river or this sort of thing. But just getting it out and not holding on to it anymore. I would say also too, singing. Just even in your house, putting music on and just allow yourself to express. Because if you're finding yourself where it's timid to speak, or you speak and people can barely hear you, or you're secretive or shy, you know, this is what we want to overcome. If you're unable to bring your plans into reality because you can't think of the details, all these things I was saying, like just getting yourself in a bit like way to express this, you know. So for someone who has this area who's overactive, I would say you'll notice this person has an inability to listen very well. The people that just talk over you, and you can't get a word in edgewise. And they never really listen to what you have to say. It's just like non-stop talking. And a lot of the times the filter between the head and the mouth isn't there. They just kind of say everything that's coming to mind. Also here, people can gossip a lot. You know, it's much easier just to hold that energy and speak about somebody rather than going up to them, approaching them and saying, hey, I'm experiencing this. Let's clear the air. And for anybody that works in community, in groups, at medicine centers, all these different places, this is really, really crucial to anything functioning well. Is everyone on that team feels like they have an environment that's safe to speak in, safe to express in. So learning about nonviolent communication in these organizations, so people don't feel like, I can't say this to this other person, they're going to blow up and get angry at me, you know? It's really important. So you have to have that courage to be able to say, because what I see in places I go when people don't express to each other what's going on, there's a cloud of sticky static in the air. And you can feel it, and it just feels uncomfortable for everybody in the environment. Then you go into those places where people are courageous enough to speak what they need to say to one another. It's extremely clear, and it's comfortable to be in. So if you find yourself in one of those environments, starting to model and be one of those people and teach other people that, hey, it's okay, I'm a safe place to come and speak to. I will give you a safe place to speak. Can you do the same for me? And start modeling that. Really, really important. So if this is overactive, one of the most important things I tell people is practice silence. Go to a silent retreat. Take a day or a Sunday afternoon where from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. you tell your family, hey, I'm going to go into silence. Or for women on their moon day or some special day, full moon, where you take silence because you can see that this is happening here. I need to learn how to go within. Practicing listening, so not jumping over people when they're trying to speak. Just making sure you're giving yourself that pause. Stop gossiping, as I said before. And if you're having a hard time, details are all over the place, write them down. Really concretize things so that you can really, instead of just having a million ideas at once, you're really listing what needs to be done and following a plan, which really tends to help. Is that it? I think that's it. So thank you so much for tuning in, and if you like what you're seeing, please click subscribe so that you can continue to learn more about the energy centers and all the other things I'm going to share in the future. Thank you again for your support, and we'll see you again. Happy singing, happy expressing, happy truth telling.